The battlefield was silent, too silent. Smoke rose from the shattered earth, carrying with it the stench of iron and ash. What had once been an army was now nothing more than broken shields and lifeless bodies, scattered across the plains like discarded toys. Through this graveyard walked a boy who was no hero, no chosen knight, but a nameless soldier who had survived by hiding behind the corpses of braver men. His hands shook as he stumbled forward, boots sinking into blood-soaked mud. He should have run. He should have left. But something pulled him deeper into the ruin, as if fate itself dragged his feet. And then he saw her. A shadow loomed among the fallen, a giantess, taller than towers, her once golden armor shattered into fragments. She was dying, her breaths heavy, each one rattling like the sound of a collapsing mountain. Yet even broken, she radiated a power so fierce it made his knees buckle. Her hand gripped a blade unlike any he had ever seen. The sword shimmered faintly, its edge untouched by battle, its glow pulsing like a heartbeat. He wanted to turn away, to pretend he hadn't seen it, but her eyes found him. Eyes silver and ancient, as if they had watched centuries burn. She coughed, blood staining her lips, but her voice carried like a command. "Human, come closer." He froze. Soldiers did not disobey giants. They feared them, hunted them, slaughtered them. Yet now one of their great queens called to him, not as prey, but as if he alone mattered. He approached, trembling, heart hammering. She lowered the sword, its tip sinking into the mud. "Take it," she whispered. "Take my sword, and never know death." His breath caught in his throat. The promise sounded impossible, insane, yet the glow of the blade reached for him, tugging at something deep in his bones. Her grip weakened. Her lips curled into a smile that was not kindness, not relief, but something crueler. And with a final shuddering breath, she laughed. The sound was jagged, echoing over the dead. It was not the laugh of a queen freed from suffering. It was the laugh of someone who had just set a trap. And as her body stilled, the boy's shaking hand closed around the sword's hilt. The moment his fingers closed around the hilt, a shock tore through his body. It wasn't pain, not exactly. It was as if lightning had rewired his veins. He gasped, falling to his knees, yet the sword held him upright, its glow fusing with the rhythm of his heartbeat. When he looked at his hands, the cuts from the battle were gone. His skin knit itself together, scars vanishing in seconds. He pressed a trembling palm to his ribs where a spear had nearly killed him an hour earlier. Smooth, whole, alive, alive, when he shouldn't be. The boy stumbled back, clutching the blade. This isn't real," he whispered. But reality came crashing fast. From the smoke, armored figures emerged, survivors of the enemy army. Their eyes locked on him, then on the weapon that pulsed with unnatural light. One raised a spear. Another shouted, "The giant's blade. It lives. Kill him before it claims him." They rushed. Instinct screamed at him to run, but his body moved on its own. The sword cut through the air, and in a single sweep, steel split like paper. He had never held a weapon so heavy, yet it swung with terrifying ease, dragging him into motions he did not know he had. Blood sprayed, men fell, and the boy stared at his own hands in horror. I didn't mean to," his voice cracked, but the blade thrummed, as if pleased. Then he heard it. A whisper, faint at first, then curling into his mind like smoke. Not words in any tongue he knew, but the meaning was clear, more. "Feed me more." His chest tightened. He dropped the sword into the dirt, but it did not fall. It hovered, still glowing, waiting for him to reclaim it. The soldiers who had seen the display fled, screaming of demons and curses. Alone again, the boy staggered to a stream. He stared at his reflection. Pale skin, wide eyes, blood splattered across his cheek. Only one thing stood out. Behind him, reflected in the water, the sword pulsed like a second heartbeat. He touched the wound at his side again. Nothing. Not even pain. And that terrified him most of all. Because for the first time in his life, he realized he could not die. Days turned into weeks, and the boy's name spread faster than wildfire. The immortal soldier. The deathless boy. The one who carried the giant's blade. At first, his comrades cheered him. Generals called him a blessing, a weapon delivered by fate itself. He was paraded through camps, ordered to fight battles no man should survive. And survive he did. Arrow after arrow pierced him, flames swallowed him whole, blades cut deep into his flesh. Yet each time, wounds vanished as if they had never existed. The army began to fear him as much as they praised him. It wasn't long before their admiration soured. His victories made commanders envious, jealous of a boy who could not die. Around campfires, whispers grew, "He's not human anymore." Others spat, "He's a curse in the shape of a man." The truth struck hardest when betrayal came from within. One night, his closest commander invited him into his tent. Wine and bread laid out like a peace offering. "You should give the blade to the king," the commander urged, voice heavy with false warmth. "Men aren't meant to carry such power." The boy refused. The sword would not leave his side even when he tried to part with it. He whispered, It doesn't let go." The commander's mask cracked. Soldiers stormed in, shackles in hand. His own army, the very men he had bled beside, had turned against him. They dragged him into the courtyard, torches flickering, eyes filled not with loyalty but hunger. "Kill him," someone shouted. "Take the sword from his corpse." But what followed shattered their courage. Spears drove into his chest. Blades cut through muscle and bone. He screamed, falling to the ground. Yet a moment later, he rose, blood steaming off his skin as wounds closed faster than they could form. The men stepped back, terror twisting their faces. His heart pounded. Their fear was worse than their hatred. Because in their eyes, he wasn't a soldier anymore. He was a monster. And then, her laugh echoed again. The giantess's laugh, faint but sharp, curling in the corners of his mind. He gripped the blade, shaking, realizing he was not carrying the sword. The sword was carrying him. The boy wandered for days after the betrayal, no longer welcome among his own kind. Villages barred their doors when he passed. Mothers pulled children away, priests muttered prayers against evil. His reflection in every puddle, every polished blade, looked less and less like the face he remembered. It wasn't only his body that had changed, it was the voice inside his skull. At first, it had been whispers. Now, it was sentences, spoken in the giantess queen's tone. "You carry me." He froze the first time he heard it clearly, dropping the sword in horror. But the voice did not vanish. It echoed from within, wrapped around his thoughts like chains. Each time he lifted the weapon, he felt her presence, the weight of her gaze, the curve of her smile, the sound of that dying laugh. The truth came to him not as revelation but as torture. He dreamed of her at night, the battlefield replaying endlessly. Only this time, she did not beg. She commanded. "You think I chose you by accident? Foolish boy. I gave you my eternity. My war does not end with my death." The boy woke in a cold sweat, breath ragged, the blade glowing faintly at his side. He wanted to hurl it into the sea, bury it in stone, burn it in fire. But no matter what he tried, it always returned, lying by his hand come morning, humming with grim patience. And then came the memory he had ignored, her laugh. It hadn't been relief, nor kindness. It had been vengeance. She had known what she was doing. The last queen of the giants, stripped of her army, had given her enemy not victory, but a curse. By binding her essence to the sword, she ensured that her hatred would never die. Through him, her war would continue, long after her body had rotted in the soil. His stomach twisted with dread. He wasn't the hero of this tale. He was the vessel of her revenge. And worse, he could feel her growing stronger inside him. As though with each kill, each drop of spilled blood, she laughed a little louder. The boy's exile carried him to the edge of the world, but fate refused to let him fade into silence. Word of his immortality spread like wildfire, until it reached the ears of one who had once fought beside him, his rival commander. Ambitious, cunning, and unscarred by loyalty, the man had risen in power, carving a throne for himself upon the corpses of allies and enemies alike. And now, He wanted the sword. Their armies clashed beneath a storm that ripped the skies open, rain pouring like molten silver. The boy stood at the heart of the battlefield, drenched and trembling, the cursed blade humming with hunger. Across from him, his rival rode a black steed, eyes fixed on the weapon as though it were the only thing in the world worth owning. "Give it to me," the commander snarled. "You've wasted its gift. A coward like you doesn't deserve eternity." The boy said nothing. Lightning flashed, and in that blinding light, the rival's troops surged forward. The battle was chaos. Spears broke against the boy's chest, arrows buried in his flesh only to fall away as the wounds sealed. Every strike he delivered left men screaming, and with every life stolen, her voice laughed louder in his skull. "Yes, keep feeding me." But then, his friend's cry cut through the storm. The one person who had stayed at his side, even when the world abandoned him, lay bleeding in the mud. A mortal wound. No healing, no miracle. Not for anyone but him. The boy's heart cracked. Immortality meant nothing if everyone he loved could die. Rage drowned him. He met his rival in single combat, the cursed sword clashing against steel. The commander was skilled, relentless, but against an unkillable foe, skill meant little. Still, the boy staggered with every laugh echoing in his mind, every pulse of the blade dragging him deeper into the giantess's will. He realized then, to break the curse, he had to do what no warrior would ever choose. With a scream that shook the heavens, he turned the sword inward. The rival's eyes widened in disbelief as the boy drove the glowing blade through his own chest. The world froze. The storm silenced. And for a heartbeat, the laugh was deafening. Then, silence. The sword shattered like glass, fragments scattering into the wind. The boy collapsed, breath gone, body still. Yet when his eyes opened again, the battlefield was empty. No rival, no friend, no army. Only silence. And somewhere in the distance, her laugh lingered. Softer now. Almost satisfied.